Hey guys, it's Leila from Ignite and I'm here with Jonny.
Hello.
And we're welcoming you to part 2 of our Module A video. This one is focusing on how to directly structure your essays for Module A on textual conversations, the ordering of your paragraphs, what you need to take into consideration. So let's get into it.
Very practical. But before we do that, please do check out our website at ignitehsc.com.au. We have got a huge platform established now. Got lots of people using this at the moment. We've got lots of HSC English resources that go from start to finish through the modules such as Module A. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it, so please do check it out. Please like the video if you enjoy, and do us a favor right now, please subscribe to the channel. We'll keep producing these amazing videos for you.
To a discussion of the actual process of drafting that essay for Module A, how to go about the module. So I guess the first step is to be aware of the rubric and those ideas we flagged at the beginning of the video concerning what intertextuality is, that dialogue between the texts, and that you're really showing in your essay that you understand how meaning is in this constant process of being negotiated through a study. So that's the broader conceptual framework. Then of course you'd go through each of these texts, and as you're going through them, you're looking to highlight overarching ideas that you see being conveyed between the two texts, and you start to gather evidence for those. So as you're navigating through whichever text you're studying, you're looking to pick out certain bits of evidence which speak to salient values that are raised within them. So for example, in Tempest and Hagseed, it may be notions of imprisonment, or it may be notions of freedom or the possibility of liberation. It may be metatextuality more broadly and how that speaks to both of the texts. And then you want to gather evidence. And then what you want to do is order that evidence in a way that shows the marker that you've identified a key value in one source text, and then how that value has been enhanced in some way by way of comparison to the adapted text. And that's really the process of your essay in its broader sense. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll add on that. So I would say specifically in the introduction, what a lot of students often forget, I've already noticed after 1 year of this, is that they forget to actually talk about the value of the textual conversation itself. They will introduce the first text, they'll introduce the second text, they might mention a difference or a similarity, but what they won't do, and they might actually go as far as even saying about talking about the contextual shifts that have caused those differences and what we just talked about, they might go as far as doing that. But then what they don't do is they don't then come back to what you ultimately get out of the textual conversation itself.
That's
what
right.
value do you get in studying the two together? How has meaning evolved specifically? And you should actually say specifically what has happened with those two texts by looking at them together.
Yes.
So you need to look at one text, look at the other, sure, introduce them, establish how they might be different or similar, establish how meaning has evolved, but then talk about how you as the responder are actually getting value out of this comparative study, out of the textual conversation. So don't forget to mention that really it should really be highlighted as the thesis, in my opinion. You should start with what you get out of it, the textual conversation that is, and it should be laid throughout the entire essay. I was just going to add, on top of the introduction, I think a great place to mention words like textual conversation and dialogue and exchange of values are places like the topic sentences and the link sentences. So at the edges of each of those body paragraphs. Because within the body paragraphs, you are going to have to get deep into the analysis of each text, and you will have to make links between them. But I think when you come out of that body paragraph, or when you're leading into it, use language like, for instance, and I apologize for those who aren't studying Tempest and Hagseed, but just take it as an example. You would say something like, the Tempest begins the conversation by, just words like that. Talk about it from that dialogue, using like words that are to do with the dialogue, if you like, in the topic sentence, in the link. And then you can say something like, Atwood responds to Shakespeare by, like as if they're actually talking to each other. I think that's something you can do that is going to be a bit more sophisticated rather than just moreover, or in Tempest, and then in Hagseed, this happens. You actually want to show that the whole way you were acknowledging there's a conversation going on, and that actually want to frame it like a conversation in your essay.
Yeah, and that's also really important when you're addressing different question types. So a lot of the practice questions, the trial questions from last year, were asking students to consider how the comparative study deepens your understanding of these two texts, or the enjoyment of reading came up in the Catholic trial paper. And if you're equipped in describing the dialogue between the two composers, that also makes you, or puts you in a better position to better address those questions in the exam, because you've got this sort of equipment, this jargon that you can use to describe the beauty of textual conversations. And markers want to see that the student appreciates that, right? They want to see that the student acknowledges the value in comparing two texts and being able to bring out and illuminate new ways of understanding each of them. So that's important in terms of just being able to address the different types of questions, because most of them will ask you about the value of intertextuality.
Absolutely. And perhaps like a last point here on the structure, in terms of body paragraph structure, what are you recommending? What are you thinking are the primary options that a student should take?
So there's a bit of a contentious point, and I think speaking to different students from different schools, there's no one set way that you can go about it. Personally, I think because you're bringing the two different texts within dialogue, it's actually quite hard to have a comparative body paragraph structure. I think it becomes quite overwhelming for a student, particularly if you find control of language difficult. So,
what do you mean by that comparative body paragraph structure?
So bringing two texts within the same body paragraph. What I prefer for most students, majority of students, is a 4-body paragraph structure, starting off with, let's say if you're doing Woolf and Daldry, starting off with Virginia Woolf in one paragraph and then going into Daldry in your second paragraph, but that second paragraph will have the job of gesturing back towards the idea you framed in the first paragraph and explaining how that second text alters or develops the idea that you've raised in the first paragraph. And the second half of the essay do the same. Revert back to Woolf and then Daldry again in the final paragraph, again gesturing back to that second idea you raised and how that's been developed. Alternatively, you could have a split paragraph structure for the first two, so you could go Woolf, Daldry, and then comparative third paragraph at the end. Again, my reason for...
Tough.
It is tough.
It's more difficult.
I have seen a few schools actually suggest that for their students and give that as their prescribed structure. Which, by the way, guys, if your school has given you a structure, definitely go with that, at least for your internal assessments, because if you whip out a different structure and your teachers don't like it, it'll affect your internal mark.
That's
so just
right.
go with what they've said.
Markers are human.
Yes, markers are human. So go with what they've said, at least up until your trials. But my preferred structure
And
is
go with us.
My preferred structure is the 4 paragraphs. And like I said, I gestured towards it earlier, the reason that I don't like the comparative body paragraphs is because what I often see with students is they end up just writing half their paragraph on one text and then the other one, and it just ends up being a really long, clunky, unorganized paragraph anyway.
Yes.
But if you are very good at English and you will treat that comparative structure as, one line from Tempest, the next line on Hagseed, and you're moving through very fluidly within the paragraph between the text and you're actually showcasing the textual conversation, then you can go with that. Otherwise, the split paragraph, I think, works best.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. The 3-body paragraph, definitely if you're at the top end of English and you really have a good grasp of the conversation between the text you're studying, it's probably the best way to do it, but you're not getting a whole lot of bang for your buck doing that one. You're actually much safer. You can still get full marks doing the 4-body paragraph structure, which is do your first text in the first body, do the second text in the second body, then back to the other text, then back to the second text. But as Leila said very clearly there, after your first body paragraph, which is where you establish the first text, and which should be the original text, the first text to be published.
And the first idea based on that text.
The first idea, have the first text. You don't need to mention the other text yet. But as soon as you get to bodies 2, 3, and 4, every time you bring some evidence in, you should be trying to look for those links to the other text. Okay, so once you establish the first one, it's then really... It almost is like a comparative essay. It is like a comparative body paragraph structure, except you should still have a primary focus on, for each body paragraph, you want to have a primary text that you focus on, and you make the subtle links and talk about why there are differences, why there are similarities in each one.
So the evidence will be from one text, but you will use that evidence to gesture back to the connection to the other text. So whilst in The Tempest, Shakespeare conveys this idea through this mode or through this form, Hagseed or Atwood uses a different form in this particular quote, and this is how it enhanced or challenged my understanding of the idea that you framed in the first paragraph. So that's the kind of language that you're using.
Yes, whilst, whereas, unlike is a nice one as well. Unlike Atwood, who...
Yeah, or in response to...
Yeah, in response, or...
challenging Shakespeare's proposition of...
Yes. These are all good sentence starters, so, re-listen to this, take note of it, try and use it in your analysis within the body paragraphs.
Yeah.
But I think... The main thing with that 4-body paragraph structure, which I think we agree is the safest one, you can still get full marks. I think it's the one I'd recommend to everyone. But if you are doing it, don't forget to look at the text together all the time, except that first body paragraph where you're kind of just bringing in the earlier text.
Yes.
But otherwise, you really need to have heavy comparisons within the other ones. Don't forget to do that. Otherwise, you really are just kind of looking at one text, looking at another. You're not acknowledging that they are being unified through this study, and that there is an evolution of meaning, and you need to acknowledge what that extra meaning is, what the impact is of looking at them together.
Yeah, and in terms of, you may be thinking, right, while watching this video, well, what do I base my body paragraphs on? We won't go into specific themes in this video, just so we know that it's applicable to any student studying Module A, irrespective of the elective that your school chooses. But I think one bit of advice I would give to you is to be broad in your construction of those paragraphs. So pick thematic values that are easily adaptable to different types of questions, so that you're equipped, irrespective of what the question is, to draw those links to what is being posed to you. Yeah, so have certain thematic values, have clear ones that connect the two texts, but I guess you're using thematic values as a means of showcasing intertextuality. The themes themselves aren't the central focus of the study. So pick whatever enables you to talk about meaning being negotiated, because textual conversations is your focus. You're just picking examples of how textual conversations are rooted within particular ideas between the text. So be broad and be very, very willing to adjust the way you frame those ideas depending on the particular question you're given. Because if you're very specific and rigid, chances are you'll be stuck up in the exam.
Yeah, that's good advice. So themes, definitely not the kind of focus of this study necessarily, but if you don't have themes to think about for each body paragraph, you'll find it very difficult indeed to actually start writing. You won't know what to base your analysis on. So I would pick personally 2 themes. If you're studying a text, pick 2 themes which kind of progress from one to the other. So a good one for the Tempest and Hagseed is kind of like the imprisonment. And then you look at how people are imprisoned in each text and use that as the means of comparing them in other respects through character and through plot and things like that, and think about why they're different. And then you'd go on to from imprisonment to like freedom, right? So then in the end you look at how they both explore freedom. So clearly freedom progresses from imprisonment. So you have that kind of 2 ideas, and you have 2 body paragraphs falling into each of those. And then you work from that theme to then talk about form, context, and how things are different.
And you'll notice those 2 ideas that Jonny raised could be construed in so many different ways. Like I remember in the trials, or maybe it was the HSC, notions of compassion and empathy were raised in the question, right? And students who use that structure were like, well, hang on, how was I supposed to create the links there? Well, using compassion or empathy enables freedom.
Correct.
You know, so you got to think about, okay, well, these are my ideas, but how can I use the question to give me a more specific lens to which I can express them? So that's how you want to go about it. Pick broad ideas can be construed in different ways, and be clever about the way that you then construe the question in the exam.
That's good. I mean, anything to add on that? I think there's a ton of content for you there.
Yes.
Watch back through it.
Yeah. I guess to summarize though, remember, focus, textual conversations, dialogue between the texts. Go through your text, identify those key overarching ideas, get your evidence, draft your essay, and make sure in that drafting you're coming back to context, form, authorial intent. And remember to look at as many different practice questions as you can to test whether the ideas on which you've based those paragraphs can be adapted.
Well said.
All right.
Until next time, guys. That was very good. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Remember to check out our site if you want very comprehensive resources on these Mod A texts. We've got tons out there now, ignitehsc.com.au.
Yes, and if you like the content, please do subscribe to our channel. And for now, I think we really hope to see you guys in the next video.
See you then. Subscribe.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do like the content, subscribe to our channel and we'll have more videos coming your way.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching. And please make sure you check out our online resource database. We've had a team of state rank achievers and heads of English put these together for you, covering everything from essay structures and examples all the way through to craft of writing and comprehension skills. So check them out at ignitehsc.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.